There's a truth about the human mind that no one wants to admit. We often feel safer in our suffering than we do in our peace. Be honest with yourself for a moment. There are nights when you lie awake in the dark, your body exhausted from a long day, but your mind refuses to shut down. Instead, it starts doing something painfully familiar, dragging out the broken pieces of your past to stare at them. You replay a conversation that ended 3 years ago. You analyze every look, every word, and every turn of someone who hasn't been in your life for ages. You ask yourself, why did they treat me like that? What did I do wrong? You tell yourself, I'm just trying to heal. I'm looking for closure so I can finally let go. But today, I want to give you a brutal reality check to wake up your mind. You don't want to heal. You are just addicted to the pain. That's right. You have turned your old wounds, your resentment, and your abandonment into a psychological comfort zone. You nurse it. You warm it up every night, because without that pain to chew on, you wouldn't know who you are in this world. Your pain has accidentally become the identity card that defines your very existence. Over 2,000 years ago, a classic Zen story about 2 monks by a riverbank exposed this exact dark trap of the human mind. After a massive storm swept through the valley, the only trail leading up the mountain became a muddy, slippery mess. The earth was drenched, and the biting cold of the mountain mist began to close in. 2 monks, one old, one young, walked side by side in absolute silence. The older monk walked gracefully. His brown robes flowed in the wind, and his eyes looked at the world with pure freedom. He admired the water droplets resting on the blades of grass and listened to the birds singing after the rain, as if the storm had never even happened. The younger monk, however, followed behind with a heavy heart. His head was bowed, his eyes glued to his muddy shoes, his jaw clenched in frustration. He looked at the mud splashing onto his robes and felt like the entire world was an annoyance. Soon, they arrived at a part of the river where the water had risen high, rushing wildly. The river roared, churning with white foam, cutting off their path up the mountain. Right at the edge of the water stood a young woman. She wore an elegant silk dress, her beautiful face pale with terror. She stared at the fierce current, taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back, completely helpless. According to the strict monastic rules of that era, a monk was absolutely forbidden from touching a woman's body, let alone letting his mind ripple with worldly attachments. The younger monk saw the woman and froze instantly. In his head, a wall of judgment went up. He thought, I am a pure monk. I cannot go near her. She is a distraction on my spiritual path. He chose to stand back with his arms crossed, using the rules to hide the coldness of his heart. But the older monk didn't hesitate. He didn't waste a single second debating the rules. He walked straight up to the woman, scooped her up into his strong arms, and carried her steadily across the rushing water. His face remained calm, his breathing even, as if he were simply picking up a dry leaf on the road. Reaching the other side, he gently set the woman down on the dry grass. The woman bowed her head in deep gratitude, turned around, and walked away. The event ended right there, in less than 2 minutes. Yet, for the younger monk, a completely different, far more terrifying storm was just beginning to take root in his mind. For the next 2 hours up the mountain, neither monk said a single word. But the silence between them was suffocating. The younger monk walked behind, but his mind was no longer on the mountain trail. He was trapped back at the riverbank. He replayed the image of his master carrying the girl over and over again. He began to build a courtroom in his head. Why did he do that? He has practiced for years. How could he just break the rules like that? He is no longer pure. That was shameful. With every step he took, his anger grew. He no longer smelled the fresh pine trees. He no longer saw the sunlight breaking through the clouds. He was carrying that girl. He was carrying his master's mistake, and he was carrying his own moral superiority. The mental weight made his shoulders ache and his chest tighten with resentment. Finally, at the gates of the monastery, unable to take it for one more second, the younger monk stopped dead in his tracks. His face turned bright red, and he shouted in frustration, "Master! Why did you carry that woman? We are monks. We are not supposed to touch women. Have you forgotten our vows?" The older monk stopped. He slowly turned around. His eyes looked at his disciple with no anger, no defense, just a vast space of stillness, like a lake without a single ripple. He calmly replied, "I set that girl down on the other side of the river 2 hours ago." He pointed gently at the younger monk's chest. "But you, why are you still carrying her?" Look deeply into the younger monk in that exact moment. Who was suffering more? The older monk who carried the physical woman for 2 minutes, or the younger monk who carried the mental version of her for 2 long hours? The answer is obvious, but the more important question is, why did he choose to torture himself for so long? Because the human mind is terrified of emptiness. The ego always needs something to cling to in order to prove its own existence. If the younger monk dropped the river story, he would have to face the present reality, a quiet mountain path, and a mind with nothing to judge. He needed that anger. He needed to play the role of the pure protector of the rules, to feel superior to his master. He wasn't hurt by the girl or the master. He was voluntarily addicted to his own outrage. And that is exactly how you are running your life every single day. In psychology, there's a concept called secondary gain. It means that behind every piece of pain you refuse to let go of, there is always a hidden benefit you are secretly enjoying. Pain as an excuse to avoid responsibility. When you keep wearing the label of the one who was betrayed or the failure from the past, you have the perfect excuse not to try in the present. Every time life demands you to be brave, you pull out your old wound as a shield. Because I was hurt before, I have the right to be weak. I have the right to stay still. Pain to extract validation and attention. When you vent about your ex or the injustices you've faced, you get pity and sympathy from others. You mistake that pity for love, and you are terrified of actually healing because you fear that once you are whole, no one will pay attention to you anymore. Pain to feed your ego. Just like the younger monk, holding on to resentment allows you to play the innocent victim while turning the person who hurt you into the evil villain. You hold a burning coal in your bare hands, letting your own flesh burn, just waiting for the day they will come back and apologize. But what is the reality? They moved on a long time ago. You are the only one sitting there with a wound that grows deeper every day. The older monk in the story didn't have a grand, complex secret to letting go. He didn't meditate for 10 hours to forget the girl. He simply lived fully in the present moment. The river rushed, so he waited. The girl needed help, so he lifted her. They reached the shore, so he set her down. The action was finished, and the loop was closed. He didn't carry a single speck of dust from the past into his future. You need to understand this liberating truth. The past is entirely an illusion. It is nothing more than electrical signals passing through the neurons in your brain right now. Every time you remember an old story, you are not remembering it. You are actively recreating the pain in the present moment. The person who hurt you only did it once in the real world. But you, through your attachment, have stabbed yourself 10,000 times in your own mind. You're not broken. Your true self is always whole and free, just like the older monk. You're just wearing a pair of shackles whose key is right in the palm of your hand, but you refuse to turn it because you've become too familiar with the cold feel of the iron. Letting go is not an active effort to forget. Letting go is the exact moment you realize, this story ended years ago. Why am I still playing the judge and punishing myself? The moment you give up the right to be a victim, your hands will automatically open. Tonight, when the world around you goes completely quiet, if your mind tries to pull its old trick again, trying to drag out a face, a sentence, or an old mistake to torture you, stop. Take a deep breath and ask yourself the most brutal question. Why am I keeping this story alive? To actually live my life or to have an excuse to hide from reality? If you are truly tired of being the younger monk, carrying a ghost up the mountain, leave a comment below. No explanations, no justifications, just 4 words. Time to move on. Writing it down is your official declaration to your own mind that you refuse to carry that weight any further. It's time to return your life back to the peace it deserves. If these moments of awakening help your mind breathe a little easier, stay a while and walk with us on this journey of awakening.